Welcome to the CareClinic Pod. I'm Emma, and this is Jones.
Ever feel like your brain's just going a mile a minute? Like you're stuck on fast forward, you're trying to keep up, but the thoughts are racing, you can't focus, and you even feel it in your stomach, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It's that feeling of being completely overwhelmed, right?
Okay.
And you don't even know where to start to try to untangle it all.
Exactly. And get this, did you know that nearly half of adults dealing with ADHD are also battling anxiety?
It's true, and it's way more common than people think. This double whammy can really leave you feeling lost.
Lost is a good word for it, but that's exactly why we're diving into this today, to help clear up the confusion around ADHD and anxiety. We'll unpack the science, but in a way that actually makes sense.
Because knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to understanding your own mind.
100%. And, many people, when they hear ADHD, they picture, kids bouncing off the walls, right?
Right.
But what we don't often hear about are the adults out there who are dealing with ADHD that might have been totally missed when they were younger.
Yes. And that's where those light bulb moments happen for some people because ADHD is actually, it's neurodevelopmental. So that means it starts way back in childhood. And it's about how your brain develops, how it affects your attention, your focus, even how you regulate your emotions.
So it's not just about being hyperactive, like some people might think.
No, not at all. It's way more complex than that. I mean, there are actually three main types. You've got inattentive, hyperactive, impulsive, and then the combined type. And the inattentive type often kind of flies under the radar, especially with women, because it's not always the stereotypical, hyperactivity that people picture.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not always fidgeting or whatever. It can be that struggle to stick with a task or even follow a conversation, like your brain's just got too many tabs open.
Exactly. And that's where things get even trickier because anxiety, particularly what's called generalized anxiety disorder or GAD, that brings its own set of challenges with racing thoughts and difficulty concentrating. It's like all these symptoms start to overlap.
Okay, so we've got these two distinct conditions, each with their own hurdles, but then there's this massive overlap in how they show up. No wonder it's so confusing.
Exactly. It's a puzzle where some of the pieces seem to fit in multiple places. But believe me, understanding even the subtle differences is key to moving forward.
Absolutely. And while we'll definitely dig deeper into those nuances, one of the big things that stands out is with anxiety, the worry just never quits.
Right.
It just seeps into every part of your life.
Yeah. And with ADHD, those worries often stem from the challenges that the condition itself creates. So think about it. Missed deadlines, can't get organized, you're struggling to finish things. The anxiety is real, but it's often triggered by trying to navigate everyday life with ADHD.
So it's like this domino effect. The ADHD creates these obstacles, and then anxiety pops up as you're trying to overcome them.
That's it, a vicious cycle, because then the added stress and anxiety, that just makes it even harder to manage those ADHD symptoms in the first place.
Wow, that's like, I don't know, running a marathon, but you're carrying a backpack full of rocks.
Yeah.
It's already hard enough, but then you're adding this extra weight that just makes it so much harder to keep going.
Perfect analogy.
Oh.
And unfortunately, so many people, they find themselves stuck in that cycle, feeling totally overwhelmed. And the worst part is they start blaming themselves, like, I should be able to handle this, which of course just fuels the anxiety even more.
Which is why it is so important to remember that you are not alone in this.
Yeah.
There are millions of people dealing with the complexities of ADHD and anxiety, and just understanding what you're dealing with, that's the first step towards feeling better.
It really is. And that's where it's so important to get curious about your own experience. Really start paying attention to those symptoms. When do they tend to show up? What are those triggers?
Right. Like, are you constantly worrying about things that haven't even happened? Or is that anxiety more tied to specific things like trying to manage your time or stay organized?
Those are the key questions to start asking yourself. And, if you're feeling stuck or unsure where to begin, don't forget about the CareClinic app. It can be a fantastic resource. You can track your moods, learn coping strategies, and even find therapists right there in your area.
It's like having this whole mental health toolkit right in your pocket, ready when you need it.
And speaking of support, we can't forget the power of connecting with others, people who get it.
Oh yeah, those online communities can be amazing for that. Finding people who really get it, sharing experiences, and realizing, hey, I'm not alone in this.
It's so true. It's like they say, a burden shared is a burden halved, or something like that. Just knowing someone else understands can make a huge difference. But okay, back to these overlapping symptoms. I'm really curious about something we touched on earlier. Sleep, both ADHD and anxiety, can totally mess with a good night's sleep, right? You're telling me sleep problems are definitely a big one for both. But the thing is, The reasons behind those sleepless nights, they can be totally different. With anxiety, it's often those thoughts just swirling around and around. They just won't quit when you're trying to wind down.
Like your brain decides to have a rave right when you're ready to pass out.
Exactly. No wonder you're exhausted.
And you're starting the day already behind.
And then with ADHD, it can be more about struggling to, regulate attention and sleep cycles. Your brain just doesn't want to shift gears into that relaxed state. Or maybe you just can't seem to stick with a consistent sleep schedule.
So it's like your internal clock is out of whack. It's tough to catch those Z's.
Yeah.
And, sleep deprivation makes everything worse.
Oh, 100%. You're more irritable. Your focus is shot. It's like running on fumes all day long.
And to make things even more interesting, there are those physical symptoms, the ones people don't always connect. Digestive issues, for example. Who knew your gut could be so tied to your mental state?
Right. It's amazing how connected our bodies are. The gut and brain are in constant communication. So when we're super stressed or anxious, that tension can actually show up in our stomachs. And there's even research suggesting people with ADHD might be more prone to digestive issues too.
So it's like our bodies are waving these big red flags, trying to get our attention. But without the right information, it's almost impossible to decode what they mean.
Exactly. And that's why understanding the connections is so important. Seeing the big picture that our mental and physical health are totally intertwined.
It's true. Like solving a mystery, we need all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And sometimes those pieces are those racing thoughts and that upset stomach, all part of the same picture.
You got it. Pay attention to those little whispers, those subtle signs. Connect the dots. And if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. That's where a mental health professional can be life-changing.
For sure. They're like mental health detectives. They help make sense of all the clues and figure out the best path forward.
Exactly. They can help figure out if it's ADHD or anxiety or maybe even both, and then work with you to create a treatment plan that really fits.
Speaking of treatment, medication often comes up when we talk about ADHD. But can medication also be helpful for anxiety?
It can, but it really depends. It's different for everyone. For some people, therapy alone might be enough. They learn coping skills and find ways to manage on their own.
So there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Not at all. For others, a combination of therapy and medication might be the best route. It's about finding that sweet spot, what works for you. And that's why working closely with a healthcare provider is so important.
And that's where it becomes so important to be your own advocate. You're not just along for the ride. You're in the driver's seat when it comes to your well-being.
Exactly. Nobody knows you better than you. So Speak up. Don't be afraid to ask questions and really advocate for what you need to feel your best.
It's about being like a health detective, right?
Yeah.
You're noticing those patterns, connecting the dots, and you're gathering all the information you need to make smart choices.
Yes, exactly. And that's another place where resources like the CareClinic app can be so helpful. It's like having a guide right there with you, providing tools and insights, support whenever you need it.
It's true. From tracking your symptoms to even finding a therapist right in your area, it's amazing how much support is available right at our fingertips these days. But even with all the resources out there, sometimes that first step, just asking for help, that can feel like the hardest part, don't you think?
It really can. There's still so much stigma, unfortunately, when we talk about mental health. And so many people, they just suffer in silence. They think they should be able to just snap out of it or toughen up.
Which is so unfair. We wouldn't hesitate to go to the doctor if we broke our arm or something, right? Our mental health deserves that same level of care and attention.
Absolutely. It's not weak to admit you need some help. In fact, it's incredibly courageous and empowering.
Couldn't agree more. And, no matter what you're going through, whether it's ADHD, anxiety, or anything else that's affecting how you feel, just remember, there's no shame in reaching out for support. You deserve to feel better.
Yes, you do. And please know you are not alone in this. There are so many people out there who truly understand, and incredible resources and welcoming communities ready to support you.
That's so important to remember. So as we wrap things up today, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Be kind to yourself. You're doing the best you can with what you have. And if anything we talked about today has resonated with you, if it's inspired you to take action, even a small step, remember that can make all the difference.
Beautifully said. Reach out to someone you trust, a friend, family member, your doctor. Download the CareClinic app and check out those helpful tools and resources. And above all, please remember, you are worthy of support and there is always hope for a brighter future.
Thank you so much for that powerful message. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for this conversation about ADHD and anxiety. We hope you feel empowered to prioritize your mental well-being and seek the support you deserve. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time on CareClinic.